Also, if you missed part of the show, go to the podcast, the Retire Young podcast on Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. If you're just tuning in, Al was shedding some light on retirement accounts and retirement strategies that the smart money use that are also available to us, the average investor. Now, he got into options. He talked about self-directing portfolios, because who is the best steward of your money? It's you. And there's different techniques and concepts that we can use to, hopefully do better things during our retirement years. So, Al, we talk a lot about every week, the financial markets, everybody wants to learn it or everybody wants to know more about it, but nobody really knows where to go to find the good information, the proper information. Now, there's such a gap between the Wall Street professionals, we'll call it the smart money, and the average investor. Now, how does the average investor get started to make better decisions in their accounts? I mean, there's different things that you can do as in the public where we can get in and out of our positions without the institutions or anybody really knowing, because the big money is what moves the market. Mm-hmm. Now, when we're doing that, there's opportunities that we have. So let's talk more about how to get started trading and investing as an average person and doing that properly, but with the confidence.
Sure. It's like anything else you do when you're learning how to drive a car or fly an airplane. You don't start out knowing how to do those things. You have to learn. Somebody has to teach you how to do that. And that's true in the financial markets. And by the way, there are plenty of sources out there of education, of knowledge. There's the library. There's places like Barnes & Noble. You could spend the rest of your life reading books or looking at newsletters and so forth, and probably not doing anything with it because nobody taught you how to use that knowledge. And that's the important thing. A proper education should not only include the knowledge, that's an important part of it, obviously, but then how to use the knowledge, the skill to use it. Otherwise, knowledge is of no value. And I think really what's happening, and the reason we're seeing so many students come in, is that they're tired of the kind of what I call the default Wall Street advice, which is work longer, work during retirement, get a side gig, and that's not how you add joy to your life. But it's always cutting back instead of learning how to change the situation. But you start with an education, and you can let the market educate you, which I can guarantee you will be the most expensive education you can get. Or you can find somebody like the Online Trading Academy. And maybe that's where you get the knowledge and you build the skills to be able to participate in what's probably the best opportunity out there for everybody to participate in. And one of the reasons that people come to these classes, these free investment classes, is to find out whether this is the right thing for them, first of all, and then whether maybe the Online Trading Academy is the right place to get the education that will give you the opportunity to participate properly in these financial markets.
Well, let's talk more about, it comes down to skill, obviously. There's so many different things you can get. We'll call it things or avenues for knowledge you have. But you want to have the right information because there's so much stuff out there. Now, you talk a lot about in these investing classes, Al, you talk about just some basic terminology that us as investors, a lot of people just don't know what those are, what they really mean. But it's just becoming more comfortable and confident about what's happening in the markets, the stock market, that just helps people sleep better at night. So, Al, we continue this discussion every week about retirement, but we never really dissect how us as regular people can start our own IRAs, because we talked about self-directing. What's the process? Is it as easy as going to a brokerage account and just opening an account, or do you got to go through many steps and have different certifications and all that?
No, you do not need to have special certifications, and there's not a lot of steps to go through. Basically, it's just choosing a broker, maybe one of the discount brokers that, for the most part now, really don't charge any commissions for trading stock. And the cost of investing or trading in the other assets we're talking about is very minimal. It's totally different than it used to be, 20 years ago, when it would cost several $100s. And in the other assets, the leverage assets that we're talking about, probably were not as accessible by the public, but they are now. We have high-speed internet in our homes. We have sophisticated trading platforms that do a lot of the work for you. all you need to do really is open a brokerage account, a self-directed IRA. There's typically no fees involved there, and you have choices that far exceed what's available in an employer-sponsored retirement plan. Again, I mentioned in those plans, you have a choice between mutual funds, exchange-traded funds, and maybe some stock. And that pretty much is it. And they all will be dependent upon the underlying asset or the market going up in value for you to benefit. In a self-directed IRA, whether it's a traditional or a Roth, all of the choices really expand. The choices you have expand. You can use the stock market. You can use mutual funds if you want to, exchange-traded funds, but also you have accessibility to trading options, to trading the futures market, the foreign exchange market, to have opportunities to participate in the market, whether it's going up, down, or sideways. And just the elimination of the fees is a huge benefit to any individual, and I think people just kind of assume that that's part of being in the market is paying fees to somebody to manage your money. How much management are you really getting in your employer-sponsored retirement plan?
Yeah, you opened up a can of worms that we haven't talked a lot about the fees. I mean, talk about the elimination of the fees when you do it yourself.
Right. Well, one of the more well-known people in the financial world is Jack Bogle. He was one of the people that started the Vanguard mutual funds a number of years ago. Unfortunately, Jack passed away about a year ago, maybe sometime this last year. But in the latter part of his life, he really was kind of rallying against what was happening in the mutual fund world. He felt that the choices and returns were mediocre, but he really was concentrating on fees. And one of the examples he uses, if you take $10,000 and you invest it in a mutual fund for 50 years, just leave it there for 50 years, and then you look at the returns at the end of that 50 years, the value, the individual assets within the mutual fund should be worth well over $1 million. And if you just take 2% out, it takes over $700,000 away from the return that you could have. That's just 2%, and that's a low figure when you look at the overall cost of mutual funds plus the cost of the brokerage fees. So those small fees can add up and have a huge impact on what could be available to a person when they retire. So eliminating the fees is huge, but also having the ability to choose assets or strategies that will allow you to participate in all three directions instead of one out of three. The market goes up, down, sideways. In your employer-sponsored plan, you're participating only in one of those three. In a self-directed IRA, you have the opportunity to participate in all three directions, plus have insurance on your portfolio.
Well, that's the key is protecting what you have. But if you can't protect it, you can't grow it. And it all comes down to, we talk a lot about those C words, choices, confidence, consistency. Choices is that big one. If you have more choices in your retirement strategies, that can make a big difference during your retirement ages. And we have a lot of people, Al, that are planning to retire, maybe 15, 20 years away down the road, maybe 10. And we do have a lot of listeners that are retired but want to continue that lifestyle with more confidence, another one of those C words. And now is a time for change, and now is the time to take control of your financial future. Take control of your investment decisions. Be the best steward of your money. Now is the best time to do that. So, Al, it's the end of the show here, and I want to give away one last set of tickets for people that want to take control of their financial future, be more comfortable, but also confident in their decisions. Al, last couple of weeks here, I've really pumped you up with some words of wisdom, and you didn't let me down. Tell you what, try not to let me down again.
Okay, here's the pressure. Okay, now maybe is a good time to ask, are you where you want to be or where you thought you'd be financially? Because a large part of living the life you want is taking ownership of your choices now and in the future. Too many people live on autopilot with the same thoughts and the same routines, just basically getting life done. That makes it hard or impossible to awake your potential. Maybe now's the time to think and act differently and give yourself the opportunity to change how your life will go.
Now is that time for change. Take control of your financial future. Don't forget to subscribe to the Retire Young podcast on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. Leave us a comment and a review. It's called the Retire Young podcast. Until next week with the Retire Young radio show, retire young, my friends.